All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody, to Erickson Live. Who doesn't know this situation? You start out with a project and you are super excited about it, and it seems to be the most interesting and the most important thing in the world. And then all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but gradually over time, it just starts to plateau. And it doesn't make as much progress as it once did. And all of a sudden, you have to put more effort in, and other things start to pop up. And as we sometimes said on this show, there is magic in every beginning, right? So you kind of start craving that new magic again, of something new, of something fresh, something that has that excitement, that initial drive and energy. And the project that you've started, whether it's a job or it's a course, or it's like, that project might very well be learning to be a coach or getting to your ACC, to your entry level certification by the International Coach Federation. And it's just harder than it used to be. I mean, you're not as passionate about it. So what do you do in that situation? That is what we're talking about today. How do you rekindle that spark in order to make strides towards your goal and finish it, and then move on to the next one with momentum and kind of being in the good conscience that you did everything just right. So that's what we're talking about today. And for that end, we have two amazing ladies with us. They are both the co-creators of the Erickson program, Coaching Competencies for Leaders, which is a program that is, they can probably explain this so much better, but I'll just give it a go, which is aimed at busy leaders who might not quite have the time or the interest to become full-fledged coaches, that are not really looking at becoming certified as coaches, but that still want to know, what is this coaching about, and what can I draw from, what can I maybe take from the coaching toolkit and incorporate into my own leadership style in order to infuse myself, my leadership style, with a coaching attitude, with a coaching spirit. And so that is, I see you nodding, so I think I seem to have done okay. So we have Nancy Boyer and Brigit Eichenberger with us. And she can tell us how she pronounces that in English so that people kind of know so it doesn't sound too exotic. Um, I'm not going to read out all the intros this time, because they are, by this point, Ericsson Live veterans. They are with us not for the first time. And we have their links. We're going to be posting the links to their bio so you can look them up. You can also obviously find them on LinkedIn and connect with them if you have any further questions. Oh, speaking of questions, sorry, ladies, I'm talking a lot. I'll get to you in a second. Any questions that you have, please do put them in the chat. We have Lori helping us out in the chat, one of our wonderful teaching assistants from the Art and Science of Coaching courses, and she's kind of interacting with you in the chat. So any questions that you have, she'll bring my attention to that. As she's saying here, please do let us know where you're following us. First of all, where's home? And where you're following us from. That might not necessarily be the same thing. Brigid and I were just talking about that, especially now around Christmas. Normally, lots of people fly home. This year might not seem like the most prudent thing to do at the moment. How is that for you? How is that showing up for you? How are you keeping cozy and in a good spirit? Let us know. All right. So finally. Let me get to Brigid. Brigid, welcome once again. We're really glad to have you. Yeah. So, why is this topic important to you? I remember when we sent out, we were looking for people, and you were like, oh, yes, that topic, I find that interesting. Why is that something that you would like to talk about?
Well, thank you for having me again. I feel very honored to be invited back. This topic it's just so fundamentally important to all of us. If you think about change is inevitable, we're continuously in new projects, new initiatives, new ideas come along. And, many of us are still writing these New Year's resolution. And maybe at this time of year, I do sit down and sort of, look back on the year and you sort of do your reflection, and then it all becomes sort of apparent, what have I managed to do? What have I accomplished? And what has fallen on the wayside, where you're like, oh, at the beginning of the year, as you were saying, I was all, fired up. I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. And then somehow it's just sort of, I don't know, it disappeared. And this idea of how can we motivate ourselves, I think, is a crucial discussion to have, because it includes dispelling the myth that somebody can motivate you. And this whole idea of, external stimulation or external input is somehow motivating me. And I think that's an important discussion to have. Many people are looking to their coaches to, motivate me, coach, get me through this. Excuse me. And I think there is a importance in dispelling that myth. So what can create intrinsic motivation, I guess?
Intrinsic motivation that comes from the inside, and that we can create it ourselves, and we don't depend on anybody else outside of ourselves in order to bestow that on us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
got it. Thank you. Nancy, same question to you. I know Nancy's fresh from, she hurried from teaching the art and science of coaching. Now she's here with us. So we're very grateful for that. Nancy, so why is this important to you, this topic?
Well, first of all, honored to be here with both of you and everyone in the audience. Thank you for that. Some of my favorite people on this line with me, so I'm really appreciating that. We learn together, we grow together. And so this topic specifically, when I think about what I hear as a coach, as a facilitator, as a mentor, whatever the case may be, sometimes we can be quite hard on ourselves, everyone. And if we can motivate ourselves to overcome things like building confidence, right? Overcoming fears, whatever it might be, to continue and complete those projects that need to be completed, and possibly put away the ones that don't, but still feel good that the decision was made. That's why I want to be here and be a part of it. That's something I hear. I was at HRBP before, and I just heard so much how hard people are when they're super talented. Many of you are super talented. You have a lot of experience and you've accomplished a lot. So how can we focus on that and how to move forward, instead of sometimes getting stuck on what we haven't done or what we can't do?
Yeah. So let's get into that mindset real quick for a second. And just let me come up with a metaphor that is completely hypothetical. It's a little bit sometimes like if you bring your little child to sleep and the little child doesn't want you to leave, and you have all these plans for the evening. Maybe you're doing a live stream, right? Or maybe you're doing something where you really want to be on, you want to be full of energy. And bringing the little child to sleep takes the form of falling asleep next to the little child. And when you wake up, all the plans that you had for the evening all of a sudden don't seem so appealing anymore. Before you were really excited, and then afterwards it's just like, oh, do I really have to do that now? Yeah, so you kind of, that energy is gone away. You kind of forgot why you signed up for that in the first place. So a client comes to you, for example, and says, I don't know, like it's maybe it's something along those lines where a client wants to work on it with you, right? And they are maybe in the honeymoon phase of coaching, and they discover all these things. Oh, I'm so clear now on what I want to do for the first 4 or 5 sessions. And then you notice the client's not really making progress. And the client is noticing, I'm not really making progress. And then they get mad at themselves because we're hard on ourselves. And it's just not happening. So where can we go from there? It's a very long-winded setup.
Brigit, or you want me to go?
Go right ahead.
Okay. I think some genuine curiosity and exploration would be important to really see the why behind that. You know, the why behind what's the expectation that you might have set up for yourself in the beginning? The why is it important? how might that go with, the big picture of your life right now? So really some questioning around the importance of it, and is it or not? So maybe a little bit of decision making comes into play here as well. Things change in people's lives. That's a fact. But what at this time would bring you most value? And if it's worth doing, then we can support through questioning, through visionary, what might support that to happen. But the coach cannot motivate the coachee. It's all about what's in it for the coachee, the purpose, the understanding, and the clarity that one might need to either move forward or let it go if that's the decision that's made by the coachee.
Yeah, I love what Nancy is saying. And I think this whole question of purpose, right? And I know purpose is is an in word, but that is very personal to everybody. And I mentioned before, no coach can motivate a coachee, or no facilitator or teacher can motivate a student. But what we can do as coaches, as teachers, and it's just as people, we can ask each other with that authentic curiosity, why is this important to you? And what is it touching on? What is it giving you? If you were to continue with it or to bring it into your life the way that you want to, what is it giving you? How is this, fulfilling certain parts of how you want your life to look like, how you would like your life to be like, and allowing someone that space and the time to go within and for them to realize that. I think many of us in our busy lives don't have the space and time to do that. And that is what a coach can do, is really asking you that question to go within. Why is this important to me?
And if I could, Fabian, I just
absolutely.
want to go back to your metaphor, if I could. Yeah, I mean, I think about the importance of laying down with a child to go to bed, and how that might change a priority, right? I think it goes back to values and what's important, and that's why that happens. Doesn't mean that maybe we won't get back to the project or the idea of innovation, whatever it is. It's the prioritization of, is that the most important thing at this time? And if so, what are the steps that I'm going to take to accomplish that? And if not, when might be a better time if it is still important? So really appreciating that metaphor, because we each have strong values in us, and are we aligning to those? And if not, why? And if so, what else might we do to be even more effective to make sure that we're getting the benefit and the value out of life that's important to us and our families, if that's the case?
Yeah. Yes, and in the moment, whereas through time, right? So right now, what is the most important priority? And then taking a step back and noticing, okay, this is my life. Here are all the things that are important to me. How might they live next to each other, right? Yeah.
Wow, thank you. So the example wasn't all that hypothetical. That was me half an hour ago. It's just like trying to raise myself up, and I'm desperately trying to suppress a yawn. But it's getting better and better. The more I'm listening to you guys, the more excited I'm getting. So maybe let's go off of that. So not everybody has the luxury sometimes to say, okay, I'm going to discard this project, or this doesn't align with my values right now, or maybe they haven't thought about it. It's just something they have to do, and they have to get it over with, or do they? So what if it's something where people perceive that they don't have a choice, but it's about, okay, I have to do it because I have to, because otherwise I think I might get fired, or it's just a financial thing, or I don't know what. What if it's something like that?
Is it okay, Brigit, if I go, or do you want to go?
Yes. Yeah. Go.
One thing I always think for myself is this in my control or out of my control? And I don't know why I always do my hands when I think that, but I say that constantly, and I do that constantly. If it's something that's out of my control, I need to do it, then I really still need to find purpose for myself. Somebody's telling me to do it. What part of it might I like, and don't think that I've never procrastinated, because of course I have, like anyone else. Another lesson that I learned is I used to put things off that I didn't want to do till the end of the day, and they would be in my mind throughout the day. And now I think just get it done in your best, way that you can. And then your mind is free for the things that you love to do as well. So you're not thinking about it all day. Oh yeah, I got to do that. You really put the focus you need to in it. And sometimes, honestly, it doesn't take as long as we thought it would. And that's what's surprising to me. I'm like, oh, I thought about that all day yesterday, and today it took me an hour or whatever it is. So really deciding, is it in your control or not? And then if you are going to do it, what part of it might you enjoy? And how might you go about it, so that you could still be effective. If you're going to be doing it, you might as well, you have your reputation and everything that you honor and respect, what's specific to you, and how might that show up for you?
Yeah, all what Nancy said, of course. And two things come up for me with, having to do something and a certain necessity is behind it. I think there it is really the opportunity to notice, how would this benefit somebody else, right? So widening that, zoom out, and who might be benefiting from this? So who can I support by me doing this? Okay, a colleague, can continue, can move forward with something. Maybe, they were waiting on this one thing to happen. So you make their lives easier. Maybe it is something that somebody has a real benefit from it. If you're doing this task or if you're completing something, because the other person gets something out of it that is important to them. So where is that beyond me? What can happen out there? How is it positively benefiting? How is it then maybe even going to go on with that person then having a great day? And then it has a ripple effect. So for me, I try to see it in a wider perspective. And if I sort of struggle with, and it's like, I remind myself, okay, what is this good for, right? How is this benefiting others? That's the first thing. And the second thing, which is something that truly changed my approach to tasks I need to do, is to change the language. I'm sure all of you think about it. We have words that we use. I have to do this. I need to do it, right? I must do it. And
I should.
Using words, I should, right? We're shoulding ourselves a lot. And that is really a question we love to ask, or I love to ask my clients, my coachees. What word might be more motivating, right? Where might you choose a word that has you get going and is getting you off the sofa, or is, really letting you sit down and say, okay, I'll have some drive. So I've noticed myself, and I'm sure Fabian and Nancy, you have yours as well. I shifted from I have to I choose to. Although I might not have a choice, if I flip it in my mind to I choose to do this, suddenly it becomes less daunting. I don't know why, but yeah.
I especially like I dare to, and I allow myself to.
Yes. Allowing. Yeah, nice one. What about you, Nancy? Which ones are yours?
Yeah, I kind of switch it up based on what's going on. I would have to, you both mentioned some of the ones that I would say to myself, but I always go back to why I need to. That's my biggest thing in my head anyway. I might not say it out loud, but like you said, if I do this, it could support someone else. It could support the organization, not just me, my team. That kind of helps me get going as well. Who does it support? So maybe if I using the word support in some means of that inner thought process that I'm going through.
So let me recap what we have so far, because we already have quite a bit. So Nancy, you were saying maybe you get to identify certain elements of the task that you actually enjoy, or you're able to perform certain elements of the task in a way that is unique to you, where you add a certain flavor to it, right? And maybe just to give one example, to I had a client recently who often writes technical documentation and a needs analysis of kind of for coding certain background aspects in an app that then is used for tax compliance, which in and of itself might not be the most juicy topic in the world. But he then kind of discovered his like inner writer, where he just would like not try to sound stuffy on purpose because that's what you do, that's what it's supposed to sound like, but he would actually write it in his voice and just not necessarily put jokes in there, but just like make it a little lighter, a little more authentic, even though it was for one or two people. And he got amazing feedback. Like, I've never read anything like this. This is amazing. This is the first time I actually enjoyed reading something like this. And it just gave him such a rush to kind of have made a difference in somebody's life, or at least somebody's day that way, right? And that kind of brings us to what Brigit said, that who else is benefiting, basically, right? Like who are we impacting through this? Who's counting on us? And if you have done the art and science, obviously you recognize the stakeholders exercise right away. That is kind of nestled away in that answer. And I always also go there when I do workshops for people that work in large organizations, because people can become a little bit of the opinion like, I'm just this small cog in a huge machine, nothing I do makes any difference, and why would nobody would even notice if I did my work differently. And then we go through something like that. We put down all the stakeholders, and we put down all the stakeholders of the stakeholders who are influenced by how they are, what mood they're in. And you so easily get to 60 people that you influence in a given day. And then you scale that up to a team, maybe that as collectively as a team is saying, I don't even know what we do. And all of a sudden you influence as a team like 300 people in a day. And that just shifts everything. If you imagine those people in a room, for example, that is quite the responsibility all of a sudden. So that's an amazing motivation. Is like, who am I doing that for, right? And then the third one, how are we talking to ourselves? What language are we using in our head? And you have what is the Buddhist proverb, or mind your thoughts because they become your words, mind your words because they become your actions, something along those lines. Which is just like the way you frame things for yourself determines your reality. If you say I have to, then there is pressure and I'm running behind things and I'm in stress mode. If I'm saying I get to finish this today, it's going to be behind me. Wow, great. There's this, nothing changed about the situation outside of myself. And that's exactly what Brigit was talking about with the intrinsic motivation, where I'm not necessarily like deceiving myself, but I'm giving myself the best shot to go into it with a lot of energy. Is that a fair summary of what we have so far?
Nicely done. Nicely done.
The only thing I would... Oh, go ahead, Brigit.
Oh, thank you. The only thing that just came up while you were summarizing this so beautifully is the whole idea of, do I try to get away from something that at this point makes me feel uncomfortable, right? So is it, I want to get this done because it's on my mind. Like Nancy, you were saying, right? This thing is continuously in the back of my head and it's sort of a little bit niggling at me. And so that can be a great motivation, because what if I did it now? Then I can relax and I can like, whew, it's done. And this niggling feeling goes away. So where is your motivation within a task or within a project? Are we trying to make something less bad? That can be a great motivator. So am I trying to move away from something, make something less bad? Or am I moving towards something? And again, if you've gone through the art science of coaching, of course, this is also related to the formula of change, where we're saying, do we have a juicy, big, fat, orange carrot that we are really wanting, that's pulling us? And it's like, yes, this is where I want to go towards. Or are we in a situation where we really don't like the carrot that we're stuck with, and we're like, I have to get away from this carrot no matter what, and that's getting me off the sofa? Nancy, I know you wanted to say probably same.
I was going to say, as always, we were going down the same path, Brigit. So with that, I even think about Christmas and what I need to do from a work perspective so I can enjoy the holidays, right? So that's in my head now. If you get this done, then you have that time off with your family uninterrupted. Otherwise, you're going to have to, put in an hour here or hour or two each day, to get these things done that are important for yourself and for others. So that carrot thing does come to mind for me in many circumstances as well, of the reason why I can talk myself into something as well. And then if we think about a project, sometimes the vision and the expectations around the project maybe weren't clearly set. How many of you can maybe put in the chat that you are asked to do something and you're asked to do it now, get on it. And, in our program, we have a exercise called tri-position planning, where we think through and step into different thinking spaces of a visionary, a planner, a critic ahead of time. So some of those things you can overcome prior to even getting into a project that I see many times in positions that I've had, where it isn't thought through, or the expectations aren't clear, or the vision isn't there. So it's hard to take action because of that. But with that clarity that you can do through an exercise, it can help you have that, encourage you, and keep yourself self-motivated to complete, and think of all the things that could come up that might stir you in a place of procrastination if you hadn't thought it through. So I really appreciate that exercise very much and use it a lot, even in my own mind.
Yeah. Okay. So we have tri-position planning as additional tool. I also heard timeline exercise shimmering through there. Okay. My end goal, my end state is serenity or peace, or this quiet and this time with my family. So if I want to be there, then last Friday before Christmas Eve, what do I need to have wrapped up by then? And before then. Not to get into it too much, but whoever knows what I'm talking about. So a lot of practical approaches that we have already. So we alluded to a couple of times that sometimes the answer might just be, look, you might want to go for it, and you might want to recommit, and it might still fit in your life, but you can never cross the same river twice, and we change, our circumstances change, and maybe as a result of that, sometimes the project that you started at some point isn't any longer the best way for you to go forward and to spend your energy. What do we know about helping clients identify maybe when is the right time to let go?
I'm looking at Brigit. Do you want to go first this time?
Yeah. It's of course a very good question, right? Because you have these two sayings, head down and through, right? So that's a certain mindset that a lot of, at least Western European, I have grown up with it, right? Just head down and through, eyes on the prize. There's a lot of sayings, right, that sort of encourage and entice you to continue. But at one point, it could also be true to say, cut your losses and move on, right? So when is that point? And I think that is so personal to everybody when they are in a project, in an initiative that, at one point, it might not be priority anymore. It might simply not be the right time, so maybe later, or it literally is, what? I was all hyped up. I knew why I started this, but things change. Life's changing. And therefore, allowing oneself to take a moment and be honest, hand on heart, to be honest with oneself, to say, what is really going to be hurt if I'm letting go of this? Is it my pride? Or is it really that I'm going to be regretting this for the rest of my life? And I mean, everybody can only answer that for themselves in that moment, right? Why am I holding on?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, keeping confidentiality just from a broad sense, I definitely see people that hold on for others. What will they think of me? I said I was going to do this and I'm not. So, that could be a culture thing, that could be an individual thing, but always looking back to you as well. Because if you've accomplished and you feel accomplished, another thing that's coming to mind that I have to kind of shift to here, because it's strongly coming to my mind, is when I was in HR, people would say, you know what, I don't even care that this project was canceled, because sometimes the organization cancels the project. I just want credit on what I've done thus far. So also maybe recognizing what you've done this far, or having a team or a leader or organization recognize what you've done thus far, and putting some credit around that, whether it's internal or external or both, that can really help support you as well. And maybe even in the planning, sometimes you see this in charters, what will happen if we do need to make a decision? What's the real consequence? And if it's something from a compliance standpoint or a financial budget standpoint that you need to go ahead on, how can you make it the best that it can be under those circumstances? So many different things are coming to mind from what I've experienced as well as what I've heard from others. And a lot of times, the hardest thing is what others think. And I just want to have you ponder that for a moment. Maybe it does matter what others think, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's more you thinking what others are thinking. I had one leader say something to me one time that I will never forget. It was probably 20 years ago, and I share this quite frequently. He said to me, sometimes, Nancy, people will talk about you in that situation until there's something new to talk about. And that's absolutely right. I might have been keeping it in my head longer. They were over it. They got lives, they got things going on themselves. And I think it's still, about me and my project, and it's not the case. So just throwing that out there as well for your thoughts.
Yeah, love what you're saying, Nancy. And if I may add, it's this idea of, am I a failure, right? Am I a failure if I say I'm discontinuing, I'm stopping, or if it's from an organization point of view, are they basically branding me a failure, right? Or am I, because they're canceling the project, everybody is going to see me as a failure? So this whole idea of shifting towards, well, okay, yes, it's discontinued, but what have I learned? What have we learned as a team? What can we take from this so that we can actually say, this was really important that we went through this, because it's going to support me in the future. It's going to support us doing it differently. And I think, again, this is very solution focused, of course, in terms of where are we putting the focus? Where do we want to focus on the stuff that, okay, it stopped and we're all falling into doom and gloom and, like, oh my goodness, we're never going to get out of this. Everybody's going to see me as that forever and ever. Or to say, okay, what can I take from this? Very, very much so that this is a learning and it was useful. Yeah.
I think that's so valuable what you're saying, Brigit, to consciously make that decision and to do a post-mortem, if you will, or to do a debrief. It's like, what are the lessons learned? What are the best practices we can take from this? What's the value that we can take from this? And that's true for projects. That's true if a client just didn't do their action steps that they committed to, right? What does that tell you about, like, what are you learning from this? And shoot, I had another point that's just kind of flown away somewhere. So one thing is, again, to do it consciously, right? And to not let it kind of fade away and feel guilty, feel guilty. It's like, oh, I should be doing that. And kind of just let it, let it slowly die in a way. But to really say, okay, I'm cutting it now. And then also to focus on what becomes possible now that I'm freed up from this in a way. Like having the joy of what am I doing with this new time now? And because, so one thing is, I think we definitely, Nancy, do have a cultural bias around this. And this is not my kind of big idea. I recently heard a podcast about this, but it's so true. You have so many positive connotations for sticking it out, for grit, for tenacity, yeah, for kind of being a hero and sacrificing and being the martyr and just going for it. And we love those stories, like the 300 of Sparta or whatever, right? It's like a project that, yeah. Anyway, but when it comes to quitting, there's not one single positive word about around it, right? The best thing you can say is maybe quit your losses, and it's like, ugh. Right, I kind of had to do that. It's the rational thing. It's not really, doesn't feel like, yes, that's something I did. Yeah.
We should come up with one. I think we should come up with one. And I think, well, what comes up is, for me, is Milton Erickson, that says, fail brilliantly, succeed miserably. I think it's close. But maybe we should coin a saying. Everybody, we should coin a saying.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Fabian, I think you should invite some comments in the chat as well to see if anyone can think of something, or maybe they already have something that we haven't heard. I love that we just go with this. Of course, celebrating successes, but also leaders that are on the line. One thing I really invite is if there could be learning, and if it wasn't out of compliance and it wasn't a big loss, what can you ask differently when something needs to be passed, or what can you do differently that would support those that are having trouble letting go?
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind for me, my wife will have to help me with this, I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow that was kind of like selling a breakup as we kind of realigned our relationship priorities, or like I don't know, we took our relationship to the next level, that being apart, or like something like that. Yeah, so Benjamin is saying, I'm pursuing a new opportunity, not quitting. So it's really just like focusing on like what becomes possible. You win some, you learn some, he also says. Yeah, and then you often learn more from failures than you do from when everything goes swimmingly, right?
Always.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Always. Yeah. You always learn more from when things go wrong. Heavens, yes, right?
Yeah.
When everything goes smooth, you're like, okay. But if things really are not going smoothly, sometimes what comes to mind for me is it takes some time, right? When you're in the thick of it and when you're just making the decision, it's difficult right then and there to notice the positive in it, to notice the opportunity, to notice the learning. But once you have some time and some distance, there is this, oftentimes for me at least, what comes up, I say it was a blessing in disguise, right? So that now actually truly helped me develop. And I've noticed with a lot of my clients, that's when, again, they take time and are honest with themselves, they do find that blessing within that situation. Yeah.
And that can be tough. Right? Like in that moment, like you're saying, and Robert is asking, I think it's a question, doesn't have a question mark, but I think he's asking, could you give me an insight on how to make failure to recognize as learning when the client is depressed by its huge fail? So what if the client is really like, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. I'm so upset. What are you talking about, blessing in disguise? That's so cynical. Like, they wouldn't say that, but like, how do we get them? I mean, obviously we don't get them there, like we said before, but how do we support them in getting there?
The first thing I would do is let them talk about it, right? And then from that discussion, what I'm hearing, I'm bringing back the positive aspects of what I'm hearing. But I might say, as you really consider that situation, and first of all, I'm recognizing that you're going through this tough situation. As you really think about that, what might be coming up for you that's a possibility, or what might be coming up for you that's a learning that we can take from that? And I would just ask the question, but in general, every piece of who I am is because somebody gave me feedback, the mistakes that I've made, whatever the case may be. And I had wonderful leaders and mentors that supported me, colleagues with that. And so you're right, in that moment, sometimes it's hard to see, but I tell you, as you mature, there's times now where I can think immediately, Like, what could be the good that comes out of this? And if we can start our mindsets going there, I'll just say, in this moment, personally, my husband just lost his job, and of course that's hard at the holidays, and he's a talented man with a lot of experience, so it's still like the shock of it. But I'm very proud to say, okay, we both said, not just me, but him too, what can we make of this time? He is right now, I hope you can't hear him. I'm wondering if you could hear him doing renovations in my home that he never has time for. And this is his creative mind. It's a way to get it off of his mind for a while, but also he'll get back to work. The right thing will come along. Another door will open. But in the meantime, we could be sad and scared, or we can make the best of his time. And that's what he's doing. And to me, it shows me who he is as a person, because of course it's tough, but he's just working his way through and showing his talents in my house in the meantime.
Yeah, and tell him.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, tell him I went basically
Welcome.
through the same thing when we moved to New York for my wife's job. And that's ultimately what led me to coaching. So I wouldn't want to miss that time for the world, because it's so blessing in disguise, right? I mean, going to New York was a blessing in of itself anyway. But yeah. And, oh, sorry, Brigit, you hadn't answered yet. Go for it.
Yes, yeah. So all of what Nancy said, I think in that moment, or to the question, it is, besides allowing someone to reflect on it, to hold that space, that's, I think, so important, that they're allowing themselves to sort of take a gallery view of what happened and take the time to do that. And then, of course, what is the learning? But for me also, the question in the moment for the coachee will be, what do you want to focus on? What do you want to focus on? Because nobody is going to stop you to focus on the so-called negative, the awful thing that happened. Nobody is going to stop you. It is absolutely your choice. And I would always say that. I said, it is your choice what you want to focus on. I can stop you from thinking, oh, this terrible thing happened. It's so terrible. It's so terrible. It's so terrible. It's so terrible. I can't stop you. Nobody can stop you. You decide if you want to shine your light onto something else. And as we know in Erickson, everybody that has gone through our program, what you focus on is what you get more of. I think we've mentioned this every single
time. But it's so true.
Every single live stream. It's just so true. It still is true. And I think that's, for me, lies at the heart. How do you want to look at this? What's your lens? And where you're shining that light.
So one thing that I often say in my emotional resilience classes is, like, speaking from experience, tearing yourself down is easy. Like, that's not a big deal. Like, everybody can be really hard on themselves and like, I should have done that better. And it's like, that's what the hard thing is, to be on your own team and to think about, like, how do I make the best of this and that? That's the real challenge. So if you want to be hard on yourself, then support yourself, because wallowing in self-pity and kind of like seeing the faults and everything, that's really easy. I don't know. To me, that's incredibly motivating. Other people might find that weird, but anyway. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, no, so I love what you're saying, this idea. We have all a long-standing practice. We're all really good at hitting ourselves over the head, right? This idea, I think there is a real discernment when you are doing your reflection. It is, for one thing, to notice, okay, what was out of my control, to Nancy's point, right? Where this happened to me and it wasn't in my control, and where within this situation, where was the thing that I had control over, and where, hand on heart, I want to do something differently the next time round. And that's the thing for me where, the nugget lies buried. Because, and that's sometimes a hard thing to do, because you have to admit, okay, yeah, I really didn't do that very well. But that doesn't mean that overall, you're a terrible person, or that you're a failure, or that you shouldn't be doing anything ever again. It's that honest conversation with yourself. Okay, yes, I did this. This was my part in this, because nothing happens. It always takes two to tango. So where am I going to show up differently next time? I think that's where a coach can really support a person in noticing that process.
Yeah. I think what we're coming down on, what we're kind of describing in a lot of different ways, is we help our clients dissociate in that moment, right? Like we help to get out of that super intense emotional state, and we might do things like a time shift forward. We might ask, so in a year from now, what do you, like if you look back on this a year from now, what do you want to have learned from this? How do you want yourself to pull through, to show up? How do you wish you would have acted, kind of in hindsight? You might call it accessing the wisdom of your future self, if that's not too esoteric for you, but it works, right? And it's amazing, and it's science even, in the sense that you get out of your own skin, and you think through it in a dissociated manner, and taking all kinds of different perspectives on it, and yeah, that's where coaching can really benefit and really help. Okay, so promised Brigit we were gonna do a spin on this topic as well, and I just look at the time. I'm like who was fiddling with the watch, kind of, as we say in German a little bit. Like what happened? Obviously, as we're aware of all of this, we also want to think about how to apply all of these insights to our jobs, basically, in the sense that we are very proud to provide first-class coaching education, right? And we want to set up the people that come and they're interested in coaching in becoming certified and going through all their training and being the best coaches they could possibly be. And that is a process. That is sometimes a really intense process, because it forces you to come to terms with who you are, right? You get coached a lot in our program, and you just learn so much about yourself, and not all of it you might like at the very beginning. And then there's the thing about, I have a job, I have a life, I have a family, maybe I have even 2 jobs, but I still want to do this coaching thing. And sometimes people might, and I have seen people that were so intrinsically motivated, single mom, solopreneur, getting up at 4 a.m. to do the art and science of coaching, right? Like, unbelievable. And not everybody's like that. So how do we set people up for success in the art and science of coaching with the principles of adult learning to help them to pull through, and to not think, well, it was a nice dream, but I'll bury it for now?
Nancy, do you want to go first, or?
Sure. I think one of the things is just realistic expectations, right? If you think about going through a program or whatever, the real time commitment could be helpful, so that you could block it and make it a priority, and then look at what other times we have, because we all have time. It's how we use our time. So I think realistic expectations, and as a mom, I did that, for my master's program, where I had to do it in the middle of the night when my child's sleeping, because I wasn't giving up my time with her, right? And many of you, family that you've done that for, or some priority that you've done that for. And so to me, it's about prioritization. It's about realistic expectations. And I'm going to go back to, it's about the why. Why would I do this? Well, in the case of my master's, it was about setting the expectation for my daughter, as well as other intrinsic things that it did for me. But was the carrot, if you will, or the reason big enough that I was willing to do that? And when you really think about planning ahead and blocking out your time, it's doable. And so what I want to add with our program specifically is, it is such support. Like, first of all, I don't know where we get all these fabulous, talented people from all over the world. I'm just happy we do. And they support each other, and the facilitators and the teacher assistants support each other so beautifully that you don't always have to be the one with all the answers, right? You can get support and also give support at the different times. So it's such a team dynamic and a world dynamic that I want to bring up as well. That to me, it's worth it. Brigit?
Yes. And what for me really, I've just in the past year, so I had a big goal for 2021 or already before, and that is to go and get a degree in adult education and learning. And I went in and I did it with a well-known university. And I went in and I have to be really honest with you all. I thought I was going to experience the same teaching than we practice at Erickson. And I was so shocked when, or better, yes, because, well-known, world-renowned university. And I thought, and I was so shocked, ladies and gentlemen, because I felt after the first couple of months, I felt so disengaged. So Fabian, what you were sharing, it's like, do I have to do this? Do I have to continue? And it was only when I sort of stepped back and looked at it and I noticed what was missing. So the setup that most, I would say, university or I would say classical teaching have, or a lot of the online teaching, is that you're reading things by yourself. You are watching something, a video, a presentation, a lecture by yourself, particularly, with the pandemic. So you're sitting there, you and your computer, and that's it. And then you are given an assignment, which you do by yourself. Maybe you have a group, but then it's really difficult to coordinate because everybody has so many things going on.
Then
so
you
you're
curse
doing
the fact
the
that you have a group.
coordination in a
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you have to coordinate your things. You can't do it virtual, like you can't do it in person live because of the different time zones. So you have to do it somehow in writing. And I just noticed that what was missing was that all the learning styles were being addressed. It was so heavily focused on people that prefer to read and reflect by themselves and have little engagement and interaction with other people. And I've noticed, and I noticed from many of our learners, there were so many levels missing. Being able to say something out loud, to process out loud, to discuss with another person live, to watch something, a demo, a live demo, then discuss it, and then try it out myself. And then to reflect on that. That's where the learning is happening. And I didn't notice this until I went and got another experience of so-called teaching and learning, where it became blatantly obvious that these things need to be addressed on a visual and audio, a kinesthetic, practical level. Otherwise, hardly any learning is happening. So, yeah, that's why I came with that, Fabian, with that idea to really focus on that. Because if learning is only addressed, let's say, on the visual level by yourself, hell, it's no mystery or it's no surprise that the motivation goes out of the window. Yeah.
And so
what
I'm hearing there, Brigit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Fabian.
So just to speak to a couple of those things, right? I think Erickson is really good at, so for example, the flipped classroom principle. Right. So it's not that we spend a lot of time in the same virtual room together. It's synchronous learning most of the time. There is some preparation, there is some journaling, etc., that addresses the learning types that you just mentioned. But most of the time we spend synchronous. But I think what really makes a difference is that we make the most of that time, because we have little to no just lecturing. It's not like I'm reading from a book if I'm giving a course or giving a class in the art and science of coaching. But people will have prepared something. Then I go have them prepare a presentation or like an active learning experience. Rather, I often encourage them to go find pictures that really envelop what it is they're saying. Some people have made up a song, or like they make up a demo or something, right? It's all about this creative, visceral living it. where it doesn't give you a chance to be bored or disengaged. And you might think at the beginning, 3 hours and 15 minutes every session? Are you serious? That is so long. I can't even pay attention for half an hour normally. And you don't have to, because it's segmented into chunks that really work with people's attention spans, and that mix it up. And then at the end, you always have a long time to practice and to kind of be in it. You're not even learning, you're just being coached, right? And it doesn't even feel like you're in a class or anything like that. So that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. That's just one of the principles that really bring to life, I think, what you just said, Brigit.
Yeah, and also I was going to add, just right on with Fabian as well. The only thing I was going to add is Erickson really took into mind all of the different learning styles, and each one is touched at some point. And then, of course, you make it what it is for you as well. You know, if you have a triad practice outside of the classroom where you're practicing with others, you make that what it is. Basically, bring your skills and your abilities, your style into it. But I do believe that's why the learning occurs. And I get that question many times from people, 3 hours and 15 minutes. But once they're in class, they're like, that was so interactive, like the time just flew. And as a facilitator, we're all facilitators here, the time flies. Like sometimes you're thinking, can I get it all in? And magically, with everybody's interaction, you do. I just, like Fabian said, I came from a class and it just worked out perfectly. And so it's interactive, it's engaging. We want your knowledge and your skills in the classroom. It's not lecture whatsoever. And I think that's why everybody is so successful in it.
Yeah. Adult learning.
Yeah,
right?
It's the whole adult learning. Yes, you see, and I think this is just not talked about enough. The whole idea that you come either twice a week or once a week, you come to a live class where by the end of the program, you have made friends for life every single time. You know, everybody is sharing, my goodness, our cohort is the best. And that idea of going through this together, no matter where you're based on, you know, around this globe, is such an important aspect that nobody really knows or pays attention to when they're signing up. I didn't pay attention to that. Now, if I'm ever going to take, you know, if I'm doing another degree or something, I will make that my focus. Where am I connecting with my cohort? Where am I practicing what I've been learning? When do I get to ask my questions? Because that's another thing. While you are, you know, out of class and you're implementing what you've learned, questions come up, right? You're suddenly sitting there and you're practicing and you're like, shoot, what do I do now? And in a classic, I would say, academic environment, there's simply no time and space. And that's what I really appreciate within the Erickson setting, is that at the beginning of each class, people come with their questions. And guess what? It enriches everybody else's learning, because they probably will also experience the same thing, and they will then already have the answer or support or the solutions of how can they address that situation. So, yeah. Thank you. I get really passionate about all of this, as you can see. So you have to stop me.
No, me too. So
Yeah,
it's
but I
hard
mean-
to stop you.
Yeah. Yeah, same. And bringing the cultures and the diversity of people all over the world in different time zones. That's what I hear the most. That's why I enjoy being with Erickson the most. I had a gentleman say that today. He just started last week, and this is his second class that he just said to the group. He said, I had no idea how diverse this is and how much I'm going to gain from that. And Brigit is not kidding, or Fabian, when they say it's lifetime friendships with people all over the world, because you really supported each other and got close and helped each other grow. So of course those relationships go on beyond the classroom.
Yeah. And that keyword of adult learning is really, really important to me, because it is. Oh, by the way, Jennifer says, I agree, Erickson has the best virtual adult learning experience. And I think that sums it up really nicely. Because it's not like we're creating Erickson drones or something like that, right? It's not like everybody has to behave in a certain way. Like sometimes it feels like school is a little bit like, okay, you have to do it like this, otherwise I'm going to grade you down or something. but it's like everybody has such a wealth of experience, and that goes for the 70-year-old that's now learning to become a coach, just as well as I had an 18-year-old student in one of my classes who was about to go to college and wanted to learn how to inspire other people there more, and even the 18-year-old gentleman like already has a lot of life experience and knows things about themselves where they're not accepting everything that I throw at you and you have to do it like this. So I position it always very, very ostensibly as this is to complement what you already know, right? And you can infuse what it is that you're doing with what you're learning here, and it's not about you have to stop doing it, but how can it be a both and? How can you learn how to mix it together and create your own coaching style out of it and your own leadership style, which is what CCL is about. And so it just brings more, like rather than just bringing a preset content to people, it just offers them something and they take it and they make something so much more beautiful out of it than we could have even imagined. Right? So yeah, I don't even know.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah, well said. I think that is so key. It's the invitation to bring what you know. We want you to come with everything you know, your education, your background, your experience, your stories, and you are creating out of whatever you're learning. You are deciding how this is becoming part of you. And that is a beautiful notion if you think about it. Also in terms of creativity, how many of us think, I'm not creative, but guess what? We are. And joining a learning environment like that is the best way to rediscover where you like to be creative and to bring that. And guess what? Creativity, for many of us, inspires motivation because you are creating it. What's more exciting than that? I don't know.
So I'm looking at the clock. I could talk about this all day, like not even kidding. Sometimes we do, right? When we do this on site, we do talk about it all day, 8 hours, 9 hours, it doesn't matter. But in the interest of honoring everybody's time, I would say let's do a final round. If you were to kind of maybe it's something that we've said that you want to underline or something that we didn't get to say. What do you want people to take away from today's chat? Brigit, Nancy looks like she's gesturing towards you.
Go, Brigit.
Oh, okay. You're passing the baton to me. What I would like all of you to walk away with, I guess curiosity. Where do you want to become creative, more creative within what you do, what you are hoping your life to be like, or how do you want to shape it? And where is that creativity going to be your fuel to prioritize, to cut your losses, or, to go for the juicy carrot or whatever it is that you have in mind. So that's what I'm hoping you're walking away with.
Thank you.
Nice, Brigit. And I would just say, you've got a year in front of you. We might have had some tough years. A lot of good came out of them as well. What do you want to make of your year? What might you do and what might you give up? And what will that do for you and for others? And then, of course, for those that celebrate, happy holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So, this has been the first year of Erickson Live. Thank you so much, everybody. This is the last show for this season, for this year. We're coming back next year. There's lots of really genuinely exciting stuff coming up with Erickson. So watch this space. Lots and lots of things. Also, not just for people, because obviously, kind of just completely transparent. A lot of this, we're doing this in order to get people interested in the art and science of coaching, right? To get interested in coaching and to kind of become part of the tribe, become part of the family. And next year, we're also going to be focusing not just on that, but also on people that are already part of the tribe and doing even more and creating wonderful opportunities for us to stay connected, to keep that spirit alive, and to also for you to have very tangible results from that, and to get a almost the art and science of coaching like experience continued throughout your life throughout the year. So that is incredibly exciting, and I can't wait to share more of that, or to have people on here that will share more of that. So as we're signing off, Benjamin, for example, says happy holidays as well. We wish that for you, everybody, if you get to be with your families, enjoy it. For those of us that don't get to be in the same place with their families, just keep changing the world one conversation at a time.
And thank you, Fabian, for bringing this to Erickson. You've done a beautiful job with it this year, and I can't wait for next year to see where it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, ditto. Thank you so much. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, Brigit.
Nancy.